Okay, so thank you all for coming to today's webinar. My name is Sarah and I'm on the PR team at Ford Wellness. Ford Wellness is America's #1 virtual health and wellness company. And today we are presenting The Modern Mommy, Balancing Life in the Post-Pandemic Era, presented by Daveda James. Daveda is a health and wellness coach at Ford Wellness who specializes in behavior changes. She partners with clients who need support in changing behavior around an illness, life challenge, or goal. In today's webinar, we'll go over how to balance family, motherhood, and career life. We'll have a few activities and allow questions at the end.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, just let me know if you guys can see that.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Sarah, for that introduction. I am Daveda James. I'll be your speaker for today. And just a little bit about me. I am a certified health and wellness coach, as Sarah just explained. You did a great job. A lot of people don't know what a health and wellness coach is. And so just to give an example of what Sarah was talking about, so if a client was diagnosed, with type 2 diabetes, and, they go to the doctor and the doctor says you have type 2 diabetes, you need to eat better, change your lifestyle. Well, that client might say, okay, they don't know how to do that. So the next person they might see might be a nutritionist, and they would teach them what to eat, right? Educate them about nutrition, and about what to eat and what not to eat. So that client has a lot of information and they have a goal of improving their type 2 diabetes, but not really a way of how to get there. We have habits over the years, we create habits and behaviors that's very, very hard to break. So that's where I come in and I work with clients with change their behavior around the goal and working with them to better their health outcome. So, certified health and wellness coach, also certified CBT practitioner, that's cognitive behavioral. So work with the cognitive, which is the thinking, and the behavior, which is the action. So if we change our thinking, then we will change our behavior. We'll change our behavior, we'll change our lives. So I work with clients around challenging situations in their lives as well. And I am a mother and a wife. So I often do this, and when I was preparing this presentation, I wanted to leave this there as an example. A lot of times when we get going with our lives and we become, when I say we, I mean women and mothers, we're so engulfed in motherhood that that's kind of the label that we take on. And everything else before motherhood kind of disappears. And so I was something else before as a mother, right? I was a person, an individual with dreams and aspirations and a zest for life and all of that. And a lot of times we forget about who we are. And in my situation, just to give you a little bit of background and tell you my story, that was me. I forgot about who I was. And one day, after being married for 7 years and 2 children, I woke up and that's exactly what happened. I forgot who I was and forgot that other lively person or that other person that did not have to do with motherhood. And so at the time I was at the job that I was at, and someone came to me and started, making a small talk. And they told me about this thing that they did. They said, oh, over the weekend, I did this thing called hot yoga. Have you ever done it before? I said, no, I never done hot yoga. She said, oh, you gotta go, you gotta go. It's real hot. They heat the room to about 100 degrees and then you do yoga and you're sweating. It's such a great detox and all this stuff they're saying. And she gave me some information about it. And instantly I was like, I have to do this thing. It sounds so extreme, but it's like, that's the extreme thing that I needed to kind of remember who I was. So I found the closest yoga studio, hot yoga, or actually Bikram yoga. So Bikram is different from hot yoga. It's just way more intense. Okay, it's the same postures, but they make sure the room is 103 degrees. All right, 103, 104. Hot yoga is warm, it's hot, but Bikram, yeah, it's hot. So went there. I was so excited. They had a special for like $35 for the week to go for the whole week. Made my first appointment to go to a class. I made it for 6 a.m. The first class they had, 6 a.m. It was dark outside. Went in there, went into the hot room and laid there. It was so hot. Laid there and waiting for the instructor to come in. Instructor comes in and he explains what's going to happen, and then we start. 90 minutes later, I'm hooked. I'm hooked. It was the very thing that I needed to remember who I was. And from there, I followed, I got into fitness. The same studio offered a training for a group fitness instructor, and I started actually instructing classes there. It wasn't in hot yoga, it was in something else, hot Pilates, actually. So went for the training. I found myself, because you have to find yourself a little bit when you're teaching others, right? When you're showing them how to do something, there's a certain confidence. So from then on, went into health and wellness coaching, and here I am today. So that's a little bit about me. And so you can see way more than just a wife and a mother, even though those are huge jobs, there's way more to us. And we'll definitely get into that later on in the presentation. All right. So God bless this woman. She has twins. And this is a picture that a lot of us went through for the pandemic. I remember when I went to go pick up when the school called me to pick up my kids. It was in the middle of the day, and we got there and they had a book bag full of books, and the teacher was like, "We'll call you and let you know." And I'm like, "What's going on?" So my kids weren't this small, second grade and sixth grade when the pandemic hit, but I definitely had to multitask and survive, during that time. So today we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about the modern mommy balancing life in the post-pandemic era. Not to say that everything is over with, but the whole scary part seems like it's died down. And so we really need to see what's going on and how we can navigate through this time and actually what we've learned. So just to begin with, as we're women, or as we are introduced into motherhood, we have some choices and we're faced with a lot of decisions. So just coming into being a mommy or just finding out you're with child, there are a lot of decisions and things we have to think about. So this is before the pandemic. So we're asking ourselves, how do we feel before the pandemic, just coming into motherhood? And if you're a mom, you might remember these kinds of questions. What kind of obstetrician or doctor do I want? What kind of birth? Meaning, do I want a hospital or a natural birth, a water birth? Actually had a water birth. It was amazing. How much time will I take off of work? And it really seems unfair when you have to ask that question. When you have a newborn and you're trying to see, well, how much time do I have with this newborn before I have to, kind of tear myself away and go back to work? And that's really prevalent here in the United States. Other countries, their rules are a little bit different, where they have maternity leave and it's much more than 6 weeks or 12 weeks, daycare or stay-at-home mom. That's a tough one. Do I stay home and not make any money, or try and do what I can, kind of struggle, or do I put my child in daycare and miss those moments? Kind of miss, because they're going to be there the duration or the major part of the day, right? So someone else would be taking care of them. And so that's a hard choice. I know that was a hard choice for me. Will I be able to afford daycare even? So if I do go to work, am I just working to pay for the daycare? That's just one child. What about if you have more than one? Um, how can I spend more time with my child after considering all that? When should I start preparing my child for school? So our children are going through the stages. He or she hasn't been eating a lot since going to school. What about his or her nutrition? So nutrition comes into play there. That happened to me. My son threw away his lunch. I found out he was throwing away his lunch every day and instead was playing around, right? So you're concerned about their nutrition. Is my child on grade level? Okay. So important, especially during the pandemic. Children stayed home for a year and a half. And so I know I had my issues with, my children being on grade level. And no, they're not since the pandemic. A lot of children, they missed a lot. How can I make learning fun? And these are just some of the things that we are thinking about. And that's just when children are very young. But then as you go through the different stages of childhood, it becomes more complex and more things to consider. So the things with motherhood and childhood is that it's the longest stage in our lives, right? So we have childhood, we have go through the teen years, our 20s, our 30s. Depending on when we have children, it's the longest phase, right? So once we're parents, we're parents. It really doesn't end. So we're going to go through marriage. We're going to go through our own personal phases. We're going to go through life challenges, all that, still while going through parenthood, right? So that's just one thing to consider, is that when you're there and you're there to learn. So considering all these things, before the pandemic, it was a very good chance that we were stressed out, right? Before the pandemic, it was a very good chance that we were even burned out. So how do we feel during the pandemic? Kind of the same, right? And the pandemic just kind of intensified what was already going on. So if we were stressed out and we were burned out, then, much the same thing was happening. Stress, lack of sleep, poor nutrition, unhealthy habits, little to no exercise, lack of self-care, and on top of that, we're working at home. We're bringing work into it, right? So we're already stressed out. The pandemic just kind of intensified what was going on. So let's learn a little bit about stress and about being burnt out and maybe what the difference is. So being stressed out, right? You're overloaded. It's too much. If you think about being at work, it's too much work. It's too many demands, a lot of pressure to stay in control, get things done, right? And that can lead to anxiety. That can definitely lead to anxiety. Or on the other hand, being burnt out, well, just let me say this first, the prolonged state of being stressed out will lead to being burnt out, okay? So you're so stressed out for so long that then being overloaded turns to it's not enough. There's not enough for me to go around to get this done. There's not enough time to get this done. And so you're mentally exhausted, devoid of motivation, right? Feeling empty, nothing left. And so that leads to depression. So being stressed out for a long period of time will lead to burnout. And a lot of times we don't even know that we're burnt out. Which I can tell you that was my case. Definitely during the pandemic. So next slide. This bar is like in the way. Okay, here we go. So just a little bit more about being stressed out and burnt out is that stressed out is an over-engagement, right? Overactive emotions. Oh my gosh, I gotta get this done. you know, all this sense of urgency, right now, right now, right now, but yet and still a loss of energy, right? You're tired, fatigued, but you got to get it done. Um, and stress is uh, uh, the what we all always hear about stress is that it kills, right? So stress leads to physical damage. It's going to damage us in some kind of way physically, and it may lead to early death. So if we stay under this stress state, it's going to definitely create physical damage. All right. And then that prolonged stress state leads to burnout, the disengagement, the blunted emotions, a sense of helplessness. So before it was a sense of urgency, now we don't even have that. It's a sense of helplessness, a loss of hope, leads to depression. And we already might have some physical damage going on, but now then it leads to emotional damage, right? And life is not worth living. We don't know what to do at this point. And like I said, a lot of times we don't know we're even at this point. We don't know that we're burnt out. So just some stats here, and this is very important to look at. So the burnout, the some stats for employee burnout in the United States. So the first one, a recent report from Indeed found that employee burnout is on the rise. 52% of all workers are feeling burnt out. That's up 9% from a pre-COVID survey. Employees of all ages and types are experiencing the impact of stress, fatigue, and mental health challenges. So it's not a surprise based on what happened during the pandemic. The next one, so as in 2020, American workers across the board saw heightened rates of burnout in 2021. And according to the APA, American Psychological Association, in 2001, Work and Well-Being Survey, 1,501 US adult workers, 79% of employees had experienced work-related stress in the month before the survey. Nearly 3 in 5 employees report negative impacts of stress. And what did they report? They reported work-related stress, lack of interest, lack of motivation or energy. 26% lack of effort at work. 36% reported cognitive weariness. So we're getting into what we just talked about, reported emotional exhaustion. An astounding 44% reported physical fatigue and 30% increase since 2019, right? So we're getting into that burnout, and that's what they're describing. So the last one, this is very, very important to look at because of who we are right now. Burnout among women was 30% in 2019, but expanded to 34% in 2020 and remains 34% in 2021. However, burnout among men was 27% in 2019, fell to 22% in 2020, and is 26% in 2021. What? How could their stress go down in the pandemic? So then women who spent part of their week working remotely or hybrid are at a higher burnout risk, 38%. Then women who work exclusively from home, 31%, or fully on site, 34%. Wow. Okay, so and the workplace arrangement had no effect on the men's burnout. What in the world? So what is going on here? So let's take a look. Let's see what was found. So there were some investigations done by the New York Times. Why were women more stressed than men? And this is what they found. Women are less likely to ask for more time to complete tasks because they hold stronger beliefs that they will be penalized. They found that working mothers are more likely to take on childcare responsibilities than working fathers, which contributes to feeling overwhelmed. Okay, that makes sense. Women still worry that they aren't being the good enough girl, right? And this leads them to say yes too much. They also reported that women are in tune with their own other emotions, with others' emotions, more so than men, making them more likely to prioritize the feelings of others instead of their own, putting others' needs over their own. Wow. So this is what the article stated. And really, when we look into like the later reports, they're really saying that women are innate givers, basically, and intuitives. So we're feeling others' emotions, but at the same time, what we are doing here is that we're really sacrificing ourselves. So giving does not mean sacrifice, right? So we are natural givers. We actually give birth, right? We bring children into the world. And just because we're more intuitive and more in touch with our emotions doesn't mean that we have to sacrifice ourselves. And I see this a lot with women that we mistake the two, right? The giving and sacrificing. So let's just take the example of giving birth, right? So we're giving birth to a life, we're giving birth to something that was there, right? And we're giving birth to it. But it's kind of like what we do instead is like we give birth to ourselves or a part of ourselves. So it's like when we give birth, we kind of give a lung or we give a liver or we give a part of ourselves, right? But that's really not what that's really not giving. So we're sacrificing a part of ourselves when we actually misunderstand giving. We really want to give of ourselves. So that's what's really important. That's what makes really that's what makes it important to make sure that we care for ourselves, right? And that we're filling that cup often and consistently so that then we can pour out and we can give of ourselves and not give pieces of ourselves and sacrifice, if that makes sense. So this leads us back to really why we are here today. Why are we here? It's probably because we had an interest in the topic, and we're interested in some kind of change, some kind of transformation, some kind of learning about what we went through with the pandemic and trying to find a better way around balancing our lives. So before we go forward, we just want to stop right here and just state our intention moving forward. So then we'll be purposeful about that change, right? So you can read this quietly to yourself. I'm going to read it out loud. So we're going to set this intention now. As I open my heart even wider, I state my intention. I am finally ready to receive answers to questions and solutions to problems around balancing life, career, and family. Beginning now, in this post-pandemic era, I pledge that my life will no longer reflect self-sacrifice, overwhelming stress, lack, or unworthiness. Instead, I will reflect self-love, self-care, forgiveness, and compassion for myself. I am my top priority. I'm sorry. Wrong side. Let's finish that affirmation. So I fully bring a balance. So we want to fully bring balance to our lives. Okay, so today, that is our intention, everything we just stated, so that now we can be open to move forward. So how do we do that? Or what is the answer? Really, we need to reconnect to those pieces of ourselves that we forgot, like me, before being a mother and before being a wife, before even career, and kind of gather those pieces back together and focus on these key areas: mind, body, and spirit. We really need to have a holistic picture to moving forward, a holistic picture to make sure this transformation happens, right? And yes, definitely boundaries will be required because we want to make sure that we don't fall back into old habits. So we really need to change our perspective. So as we look forward into doing something different, we want to change our perspective and shift a little bit. This is a little quote from Wayne Dyer. If we change the way we look at things, the things we look at will change, right? So we look at our lives just a little different and we look at ourselves a little different and remember, oh, we have other parts of us. Let's see how I can pull this together and actually change my life versus what we have been doing, which is there's another saying, if we do what we've always done, we'll get what we've always gotten, right? So we want to change and we want to shift our perspective just a little bit. So here is a tool that we could use, and this is the wellness wheel. And just a little bit about the wellness wheel. We're going to go to visit a website. We're going to visit the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. They have a great page that will tell us about the wellness wheel. Then we'll come back and do a quick activity. Okay. So this tells us a little about the wellness wheel, and health coaches, health and wellness coaches use the wellness wheel a lot. It's a great tool when we work with clients, but it says a wellness wheel is a wellness model that represents 8 dimensions of wellness: spiritual, emotional, intellectual, physical, social, environmental, financial, and occupational. Whoa, where's just the mommy and the wife, right? Look at everything to us, all those dimensions to our lives. All of the 8 dimensions of a wellness wheel are necessary to have a balanced and happy life. To experience optimal health, all 8 areas of your well-being must be healthy and tended to. All areas are interconnected, and being fulfilled in one area will affect other areas as well. So, so, so important. So that's our wellness wheel that we're going to dive into just a minute. I'm going to take you up here and just read a little bit about the 8 dimensions. And we're going to begin with emotional wellness. So emotional wellness involves being able to cope effectively with difficulties in life, being emotionally aware and having healthy relationships with yourself and others. People with healthy emotional wellness are confident, have control over their feelings and behavior, and have good coping mechanisms, right? So that's emotional wellness. And these are all the things that involves. Spiritual wellness. Spiritual wellness is about having a sense of purpose and meaning in life that revolves around your personal beliefs and values. Spiritual health can involve a connection with nature, self-reflection, meditation, prayer, and more. Being spiritually healthy means that you have strong values, a feeling of inner peace and meaning in life. Okay? Spiritual wellness includes all of these. Okay? We're going to get a little bit into this. Next one is intellectual wellness. What does that mean? It's about exercising the mind, learn new things, and expanding on one's knowledge. Being intellectually healthy can help you with mental growth, which helps with your concentration, memory, and critical thinking skills. Physical wellness, we definitely know about that, but sometimes we forget about it. It involves eating a healthy diet, getting enough sleep, doing regular exercise, and preventing and managing illness and health conditions. Environmental wellness refers to being in a nurturing and a healthy environment, as well as having awareness and respect for the environment around us. Financial wellness, very important, refers to being financially literate, in charge of your finances and responsible with your money, right? We definitely need that for balance. Occupational wellness is about our work and our occupation, right? A common cause of stress for many Americans in their lives is because they don't have work-life balance. Social wellness involves having a strong support system or network, or feeling connected to other people and having a sense of belonging. Okay. And so now we know we touch bases on those 8 dimensions. We're going to go back to our wellness wheel, actually do this activity. If you have a piece of paper next to you, if you have a pencil, you just want to grab that and really quickly just draw a circle on the paper. And we're going to follow these instructions. Draw a circle, then draw a line down the middle vertically, and then across horizontally, and then diagonally going from the right and then diagonal from the left. And when you do that, you should have, it look like 8 slices of pie. And then you can just go through and label each dimension. I'll give you just a few seconds to do that. So it's emotional, social, intellectual, occupational, physical, all those dimensions you see there. Once we have them all labeled, then we're going to rate each dimension of our life. So if we pick the physical dimension, we're going to rate it so that the small piece of pie that is the physical dimension, starting to the center, the smallest part, that's going to be 0, and all the way to the edge is going to be 10. So if you will rate your physical dimension a 5, you're going to draw a line right in the middle, horizontally, in that slice of pie. Right? If it's less, it's going to be closer to the center. If it's more, it'll be further out to the edge. So we're going to do that now for each dimension. And just take a second, think about it, and just rate it 0 to 10. And so this is very, very helpful for coaches, and it's very helpful for clients because you actually see in black and white your life, right? And you actually see what you need to work on, the things that you rate lower or higher, because the wheel might be kind of bumpy. Like we're not 100% balanced, right? We're all working on it. So some parts will be higher to the edge or closer to the edge. Some parts will be closer to the middle. So it'll go up and down a little bit. So our wheel will be bumpy. So we know exactly what we want to work on to help balance that wheel. Okay. And so as we rate it, some things might come to mind. Some things might be surprising after we're done and we look at our wheel and we see, oh, wow, okay, I kind of knew that I need to work on this, but it's right here on paper. And I see how much I need to work on this in comparison to some of the other dimensions in my life. So it's very, very valuable information, even just for ourselves. So that was that activity. I hope that that was eye-opening. I know when I did a wellness wheel, that was very eye-opening the first time I did it. If you're still working on it, please feel free to keep working on it. I'm gonna go to the next slide. So we're coming back to those boundaries. So remember when we forgot about all those 8 dimensions of ourselves, right? Boundaries will help us not to fall back into those behaviors. So what is a boundary? A boundary is a figurative perimeter used to support physical, emotional, and mental health, as well as our well-being. It is a defense against people-pleasing, overextending ourselves, stress, and burnout. It is the bridge that connects us to our moreness. So it's all that other stuff that we might forget when things get crazy and hectic. When we create boundaries, healthy boundaries, I would say, that helps us to not forget and make sure we stay grounded and we don't forget ourselves, right? So we're not being mean, we're doing healthy boundaries. Um, but this helps us a lot. This helps us to fill our cup so that we can give to others, give of ourselves and not sacrifice. So when we do those things, then we can easily go from burnout, right, to balanced. We can enjoy ourselves and enjoy our children, enjoy our family because we have pulled ourselves back together, right? We're enjoying ourselves actually again. So we want to definitely remember our intention. Remember moving forward while we're here today. Remember what we're trying to do with our lives and what we're trying to improve, right? I am my top priority, okay? We want to remember that whenever we're trying to balance our lives, we have to really come back to ourselves. So that was our presentation. If you're interested in coaching, you can please definitely let me know. Now I want to say something about the coaching. And it's kind of an analogy. You know, you have your celebrity. So if you think about your favorite celebrity, right? Favorite movie star, they have a personal trainer, nutritionist, they have a hairstylist, they have probably a voice coach or acting coach, they have nannies, they have maids, they have butlers, drivers, all of these assistants, right? Just to be their best selves. But sometimes we feel terrible just asking for help or asking for support just from one person when we all need support to be our best selves. We all need support to be fabulous, right? Like the celebrities. They have all of those assistants and supports right there just so they can stay balanced, right? So I think of the same, when I think about that, I think of coaching, that this is a way of asking for support and assistance to bring out your fabulousness and to help balance your life.